Shamu, everyone! Did y'all miss me? We're back. I had things to do last week, but we're back, and we're going to get back into the different models of magic. Now, last time we talked about the energy model and how it built off of ideas of Tantra and the works of Mesmer, mixing with animal magnetism, and these things. Today, we're going to talk a bit about the psychological model. Now, to understand how we get to the psychological model of magic, we start with Freud's theory of the subconscious. It revolutionized Western thinking, and both in general and in psychology, in particular. Suddenly, we were seen as a being that was only partially conscious and in control of itself, as opposed to man being rational agent fully in control of himself. While psychology is, even today, still fighting for, well, not as much today. Today it is very much academically regarded as a science. But while it was fighting for this, it stamped its mark on a lot of therapeutic disciplines. Oh, did my shirt break? Oops, I'll have to get another one. And so, by extension, on magic. The psychological model of magic doesn't set out to explain how magic works. Its premise is that the subconscious, or as Jung would later retag it, the unconscious, will do the job of magic if it is properly addressed and conditioned. So this is, again, achieved by magical trance, suggestion, the use of symbols, as tools that are associations and a mean of communicating between your conscious will and your subconscious faculty. Crowley dabbled a big part in the psychological model. This shouldn't come to any surprise to anybody who follows Crowley, as he tried to keep up with all major academic disciplines in his time. But all things considered, he was a traditionalist exponent of the spirit model, which we will talk about in the next video. After all, Aiwass was, in his belief, a preternatural entity, but he did have a knack for explaining magic in psychological terms to make it sound sensible to the skeptics of his time. And this is the area where psychological model really, really shines. We have millions of different people in hundreds of different paths, and not always is our communication going to work properly. So if we can attach it to psychological symbols, we can have a lot of interfaith dialogues. Now, a more radical approach to psychological magic was later taken by Austin Osman Spare, whose sigil magic rests completely on the tenets of the psychological model. So Spare's system was brilliant and simple. It was an inversion of Freud's theory of complexes. By actively suppressing his will in the form of a sigil and forgetting about it, the magician creates an artificial complex, which will start to work on similar lines. In the same way that suppressed subconscious traumas cause neurotic behavior, these suppressed subconscious sigils would cause the magic to flow. So the psychological magician is a programmer of symbols and entering different states of consciousness. They're not necessarily in need. The psychological model doesn't necessarily need a transcendent otherworld, similar to the energy model. But different from the energy model, it doesn't really need the subtle energies. Though, in a practical sense, the psychological magician will probably work in the assumption that one or the other do exist and can be utilized by his subconscious. many authors tended to subscribe to the psychological model, such as Rigardi, Dion Fortune, William Butler, Francis King, to an extent William Gray, and to a little bit more of an extent, but on other ways a lesser extent, Peter Carroll. All of these subscribed to the psychological model, which was the primary domain of the English-speaking world of magic. This wasn't something we necessarily saw in the East, or in South America, or in Africa, or any of these places. This was a very Anglophonic idea. So English speakers took this idea, and it became a very prevailing paradigm since about the 70s, and it still holds a space in many chaos magic circles nowadays. I personally don't subscribe to it, but I will say, again, where it shines is occultists and witches and mages, whatever you want to call yourself, being able to have a dialogue by talking about subconscious or psychological aspects. And so when somebody comes to me and they say, yeah, the psychology of this, I believe this thing. I'm like, all right, so the psychology of what you're telling me here is going to be this. And they'd be like, yeah, that's what I'm working on. I'm like, cool, I'm working on that too. We do it in this way. I really got to fix this. I didn't know it had ripped. I didn't even hear it rip. So, psychological model is very good for communicating between the other models and finding a way for us to talk about it. So we've done energy, we've done psychology. My next video on the models will be on the informational model. I will briefly touch on the meta model, as there's not much to say about the meta model, kind of by design. And then the last one I'm going to do, one I ascribe to, is the spirit model. I figured I would put the other ones ahead, give them their time, and then I would cover mine last. So I work in the spirit model. I do not do the energy model. I don't do outside of communication, not the psychology model. Now the information model becomes very interesting, and I will be excited to do that video. But that is all from me today. Shamu, everyone.